There is a profound irony in our modern kitchens. We fill our shelves with expensive supplements and pill organizers lined up like plastic soldiers. We buy medicines with warnings printed so small you need a magnifying glass. Yet, bubbling away in a simple mason jar on the counter is a biological secret ancient civilizations valued more than gold. It required no laboratory or patent, just salt, time, and the deep intelligence of the natural world. Modern industry spent the last century sterilizing food to sit on shelves indefinitely. But if you read ancient biblical texts as a biological survival map, you realize they did the exact opposite. They kept their meals vibrantly alive. In return, those microscopic living ecosystems protected their guts, keeping their bodies resilient and strong. Today, you and I are unpacking 15 ancient fermented foods modern science is scrambling to understand. Pay close attention to number 1. Because you likely have it in your kitchen right now. At number 8, I will share a healing recorded in biblical texts that, under the modern lens of biochemistry, becomes a precise clinical description. Number 15, sauerkraut. In the Book of Numbers, the Israelites survived the wilderness by carrying salt-preserved foods through the scorching desert. This fermented vegetation was advanced survival technology. They didn't need a microscope to know it sustained human life. Keeping food biologically active sustained civilizations through severe scarcity. Laborers building the Great Wall ate cabbage, fermented in rice wine. Roman legions marched fueled by fermented vegetation. Long before sailors relied on citrus, they prevented scurvy with barrels of sauerkraut, a living food keeping entire crews alive across the Pacific. What these ancient health maps preserved through pure observation, modern science now measures under a microscope. Raw, unpasteurized sauerkraut created through wild lacto-fermentation contains beneficial bacteria reaching into the billions per serving. It delivers dense, bioavailable doses of vitamin C, functioning as a direct medicinal protocol that protected the human body when absolutely no fresh crops could be harvested. This ancient food contains vitamin K2 and cabbage compounds, showing direct activity in cancer research. It delivers organic acids that reduce inflammation within the gut lining. A landmark Stanford study found a diet high in living fermented foods increased microbiome diversity better than a high-fiber diet. But here is the critical detail you cannot miss. The sauerkraut sitting in the grocery store aisle has been pasteurized. Heat killed every single live culture it once held. What you want must be made in your own kitchen. Pack shredded cabbage tightly with unrefined salt. Press it down until the natural brine rises, and leave it at room temperature. When it smells intensely sour and visibly bubbles when opened, you have successfully resurrected this ancient, living medicine. Consume a few tablespoons of this fermented cabbage with meals, and never discard the leftover brine. That murky liquid is as medicinally active as the vegetable itself. Ancient sailors didn't need microbiology, they simply saw that those who ate it survived. Number 14. Kimchi, the immune army forged in a clay pot. The Book of Proverbs reminds us that to a hungry soul, every bitter thing is sweet. Ancient culinary history understood this biological map perfectly. Kimchi is not a comfortable food by modern standards. It is aggressively bold, incredibly pungent, and challenging to the palate, but it was never designed to be a casual snack. It was meticulously engineered over centuries to act as highly functional internal medicine, equipping the body to fight off unseen threats. This ancient tradition produced countless varieties, maintained in clay pots buried in the earth. This diversity was a precise biological strategy. Kimchi introduces unique bacterial strains to the human body, modulating immune responses and lowering inflammation. But here is the brilliant detail modern wellness circles ignore. The raw garlic crushed into the cabbage isn't just flavor, it provides prebiotic fibers that strategically feed the exact probiotic bacteria you are swallowing. This ancient food doesn't just deposit an army of beneficial microbes into your gut. It sends them in equipped with their own food supply. The crushed chili peppers deliver powerful inflammation-reducing properties, creating a perfectly balanced medicinal ecosystem designed for human survival and resilience. The ginger root contributes compounds that actively support digestion and robust circulation. This is an ancient, synergistic seafood system built over generations of observation. Eating a few tablespoons with meals introduces massive microbial diversity. A true marker of long-term physical health. Number 13. Kefir, the medicinal drink that completely outperforms commercial yogurt. When you look at the pastoral world of the Old Testament, Abraham's tent in Genesis, or the legendary promise of milk and honey, you are looking at a society built on fermented dairy. In the ancient biblical world, milk was never consumed fresh. Without artificial refrigeration, raw milk naturally fermented into a potent, living, bioactive liquid within hours of leaving the animal, becoming a powerful daily medicine. What ancient patriarchs drank and offered guests was living, fermented milk. It was overflowing with active enzymes. Developed in the Caucasus Mountains, real kefir is created by culturing milk with ancient kefir grains, symbiotic colonies of living bacteria and yeast. This process produces a therapeutic drink with up to 60 distinct probiotic strains. Compare that living army to the weak strains found in heavily processed commercial yogurt. The isolated tribes who maintained this ancient health tradition routinely lived past 100 years old, keeping sharp minds and absolute physical strength. For these resilient people, this living fermented milk was a daily essential. Internal medicine that directly shielded their cellular biology from rapid decay. Modern clinical trials are finally catching up to this ancient health map. Kefir doesn't just pass through your digestive system. Science shows it actually colonizes the gut. These bacterial armies set up residence inside you, multiplying and defending your biology. Because these microbes predigest milk sugars, even those with lactose intolerance can drink it without pain. Peer-reviewed research confirms it heals severe bowel issues, drops inflammatory markers, and demonstrates powerful tumor-fighting activity. But here is the critical detail you cannot ignore. These ancient grains are fully alive. You cannot starve them with processed, low-fat milk. They require rich, whole, unskimmed dairy to survive, providing the fat-soluble vitamins your immune system desperately needs to repair itself. Drink 1 cup of this living liquid daily. I mean real kefir, not those sugary commercial drinks stealing the name. The real thing is slightly carbonated and sour enough to make you pay attention. Number 12. Kombucha, the living detox. Across the ancient world, fermented tonics appear repeatedly in medical contexts. In Proverbs 31, strong fermented drinks are referenced as medicines given to those in deep physical pain. They were not moral failings, but administered clinical treatments. The concept of using fermented beverages as medicine is woven directly through biblical texts. Kombucha, a sweet tea transformed by a living colony of bacteria and yeast called a SCOBY, carries a documented medical history, extending across empires for more than 2,000 years. When we read ancient dietary habits as a deliberate health map, things like fermented tea make sudden, perfect sense. Kombucha caught the attention of scientists in the early 20th century, and they proved what our ancestors already knew. The fermentation creates glucuronic and acetic acids, compounds that act as biochemical scaffolding, helping your liver pull toxins out of the body. There is verifiable chemistry happening here. It also brews up a rich blend of B vitamins. While it lacks the raw probiotic numbers of a heavy dairy ferment, its unique acid profile offers a specific kind of internal cleansing you just cannot find elsewhere. To unlock that ancient medicinal benefit, you need raw, unpasteurized tea with live cultures and under 5 grams of sugar. You and I need to look closely at how these ancient remedies were actually used. Drink 4 to 8 ounces before a meal as a targeted digestive tonic, never as a bottomless soda replacement. That brings us to number 11 on our map, traditional, full-fat yogurt. Let us strip away everything you think you know about the dairy aisle. The yogurt the ancient world relied on was thick and fermented for 24 hours until the bacteria genuinely multiplied. It shares absolutely zero biological function with the sugary cups in modern fridges. When Psalm 81 describes God offering Israel wheat and honey from the rock, it points directly to a pastoral economy where rich, fermented dairy was a daily pillar of human survival. In these ancient texts, cultured dairy was never a rare supplement, it was daily medicine. Civilizations, separated by thousands of miles independent lie, discovered that fermented milk restored the sick and fortified the elderly. When totally disconnected cultures converge on the exact same survival food, you should pay attention. Modern clinical trials now prove this ancient wisdom, showing that genuine cultured yogurt stops infectious diarrhea and rebuilds a damaged gut wall. By keeping the natural fat intact, you retain conjugated linoleic acid, a powerful compound that drastically lowers internal inflammation. The ancient Middle Eastern practice of straining this yogurt into thick lebne concentrates the life-saving proteins and the living bacteria into every single bite. The ancients ate it drenched in cold, pressed olive oil and wild herbs, not drowned in artificial fruit syrup. Moving on to number 10 on our health map, traditional miso. If you look at the book of Ezekiel, chapter 4, you will find descriptions of fermented grain preparations, detailed with a culinary precision that is incredibly rare for scripture. It reads exactly like a medical prescription, because that is precisely what it was. The ancient marriage of fermentation and grain forms the oldest medical tradition on earth. Over in Japan, they developed miso 1,000 years ago, blending soybeans with rice and a specific mold to create a daily medicine. The populations eating it daily hold the longest life expectancies on record, but it must be long-aged, that 2 to 3 year aging process fundamentally transforms the raw soybean. It breaks the plant down enzymatically into a living blend of free amino acids and digestive enzymes. More importantly, this ancient fermentation destroys the phytic acid that typically blocks your body from absorbing vital minerals. This perfectly explains why traditional Eastern cultures could eat soy every single day without suffering the severe mineral deficiencies we see in modern Western diets full of processed soy. Clinical studies show this fermented paste drastically lowers inflammatory markers and protects the delicate stomach lining. But to keep that ancient medicine alive, traditional cooks followed a strict rule: dissolve it only in hot, never boiling water. That temperature rule was written into manuscripts centuries before anyone owned a microscope to understand the fragile biochemistry of living enzymes. Which brings us to number 9, raw aged cheese. Read the book of Samuel, and you find David receiving a hard, aged cheese while out on a grueling military campaign. Through the lens of an ancient health map, this was not some luxury snack. It was dense, biologically active fuel designed to keep soldiers alive in punishing conditions. Traditional raw milk cheeses like Parmesan, real cheddar, or Manchego are teeming with active bacterial cultures protected within a heavy fat structure. Decades of industrial pasteurization have completely erased this ancient survival strategy from our modern minds, turning medicine into dead food. But the biological magic goes much deeper than probiotics. The deep aging process generates short-chain fatty acids that directly feed your colon cells, repairing the intestinal wall in ways other foods simply cannot match. It also creates a massive dose of bioavailable vitamin K2, specifically the rare menaquinone 7 form. This is the exact nutrient your body needs to pull calcium out of your arteries and drive it straight into your bones. A tiny, 1-ounce portion of real Raw milk cheese provides cardiovascular protection that expensive supplements struggle to replicate. You eat it as a small condiment, precisely the way Europeans did for centuries. And that brings us to number 8 on our map, real sourdough bread. The ancient loaf that literally digests itself. Stick with me here. Because you and I are about to unpack the story I promised you at the very beginning. Look at 1 Kings, chapter 19. The prophet Elijah is collapsed under a broom tree out in the brutal heat of the Negev desert. He is running for his life. Pushed entirely beyond his physical limits, begging to just lay down and die. In modern clinical terms, the man is crashing through starvation, severe dehydration, and acute physiological shock. Suddenly, an angel touches him and simply says, "Arise and eat." What is waiting for him on the hot coals? A baked grain cake and a vessel of water. When you read this as an ancient medical text, that is not just religious poetry. It is a hyper-precise, medically accurate protocol for immediate cellular restoration. You have a human body completely drained of its glycogen reserves, and it is handed the exact biochemical rescue it requires: complex fermented grain. The scripture notes that on the strength of that specific meal, he walked for 40 days and nights. That bread was real sourdough. Not the artificially bloated, yeast-injected loaves sitting on supermarket shelves today, but a living culture of wild yeast fermented for up to 48 hours. During that slow, ancient process, the living bacteria consume the sugars that normally spike your blood glucose. They produce targeted acids that aggressively dismantle phytic acid, the destructive compound that usually steals iron and magnesium away from your body. It is ancient, biological medicine baked straight into a loaf. Modern clinical trials confirm this ancient design. True, long-fermented sourdough radically lowers your glycemic response, supercharges mineral absorption, and pre-digests gluten so effectively that even people with extreme sensitivities can often eat it without a single symptom. The bread that revived Elijah was exactly this kind of ancient medicine: dark, dense, whole grain, and kept alive by the wild microbes native to the wheat itself. If you want to tap into this ancient health map, you have to bake it at home. You need nothing but stone ground flour, a living starter, and 24 hours of patience. There are no shortcuts when fermentation is the cure. That commercial loaf, suffocating in a plastic bag at the grocery store, is just an imposter shaped like real food. If decoding this ancient health map resonates with you, hit like and subscribe, because what we are uncovering next goes much deeper. Number 7 is kvass, a blood tonic the modern world forgot. When the prophet Ezekiel was told to consume strictly measured water and bread, he was demonstrating a profound ancient respect for hydration and blood purity. Hebrew scripture consistently treats what enters the body as a matter of biological survival. Fermented drinks played a massive medicinal role in these ancient cultures. Traditional bread kvass harnessed fermented rye crusts for gut health. But it is beet kvass, an Eastern European folk medicine used for centuries, that truly reveals how our ancestors mapped out the healing of liver conditions, sluggish digestion, and weak blood. Raw beets fermented in salted water act as a profound ancient medicine. When looking at traditional treatments for sluggish livers and anemia, these healers were manipulating compounds we are just now beginning to understand. The fermentation process amplifies betalains, those deep red pigments packed with anti-inflammatory power, while supercharging dietary nitrates. Your oral bacteria convert these nitrates into nitric oxide, opening up blood vessels and dropping blood pressure. Clinical trials show reductions of 5 to 10 millimeters of mercury, rivaling modern medicines, but with a completely natural safety profile. This ancient lactofermentatio N also adds live lactobacillus and unlocks trapped iron and folate. Long before we understood iron metabolism, ancient healers mapped out this exact cure. You and I might find the taste shocking at first. Just 4 ounces before meals delivers an earthy, deeply sour, and heavy mineral punch. Within 2 weeks, the sharp taste fades and you notice a massive shift in your energy. That brings us to number 6 on our ancient map, fermented hot sauce. Think of this as metabolic fire, across traditional Mesoamerican, West African, and Asian medicine. Healers independently discovered the same biological truth. They mapped out the human body and realized capsaicin altered our physiology unlike any other plant. True fermented hot sauce, lacto-fermented with salt over 3 to 7 days, is entirely different from the dead, vinegar-soaked condiments sitting on grocery shelves today. The difference is profoundly biological. Ancient fermentation breeds live cultures while aggressive lye concentrating capsaicin. When consumed, this compound binds directly to the gut lining, triggering a massive physiological cascade. It ignites thermogenesis, elevating your metabolic burn rate for hours. A mechanism verified by countless clinical trials. It forces the secretion of digestive enzymes and suppresses appetite signals. But the most incredible ancient secret is its direct attack on the bacteria responsible for painful gastric ulcers, offering real relief for chronic stomach distress. Furthermore, modern science reveals something even more fascinating about this ancient medicine. Capsaicin actively drives the production of short-chain fatty acids deep within our digestive tract. These pepper blends feed bacteria that produce butyrate, a protective compound linked to colon health, strong intestinal barriers, and massive inflammation reduction. Just 1 or 2 tablespoons a day shifts your entire system. Traditional cooks did not invent these flavors by accident. They built survival medicine into their daily habits. This leads us to number 5 on our map, fermented garlic and honey. This is the ultimate ancient immune legend. In the sacred wisdom of Sirach, the text explicitly states that the Creator brought forth medicines out of the earth, and the wise will not ignore them. Raw honey and fresh garlic appear across ancient medical texts so frequently, proving their incredible healing power was entirely real and fiercely protected by early healers. Everyday people relied on these exact plants to survive. When ancient herbalists combined them, they initiated a complex biochemical reaction long before modern labs existed. Here is how this map works on a cellular level. Raw honey acts as an enzymatic powerhouse, loaded with antimicrobial peptides. Submerge raw garlic in it for 4 to 8 weeks, and the honey completely transforms it. Allicin, the defensive compound in garlic, stabilizes and becomes far easier for the body to absorb. The natural bacteria spark a slow fermentation, breeding entirely new bioactive defenses. Clinical trials now prove this ancient remedy crushes the frequency of winter colds, drops blood pressure, and destroys aggressive pathogens that easily resist modern pharmaceutical drugs. Modern research confirms what the ancients knew. Raw honey accelerates healing and destroys viruses. But to recreate this survival medicine, you must follow the ancient rules. You and I need to understand that modern shortcuts ruin the chemistry. The garlic must be freshly peeled, never bought pre-minced in a jar. The honey must be entirely raw and unfiltered, holding its living enzymes and wild pollen. Dead, pasteurized supermarket honey will simply not ferment. Submerge the whole cloves in a clean jar and let it sit for 4 to 8 weeks, releasing the pressure every few days. The harsh cloves will sink, soften, and turn remarkably sweet, while the honey absorbs every ounce of the plant's medicinal power. Eat 1 to 3 cloves daily when the harsh winter sickness begins to spread. At the first sign of a rough throat, take more. This biological armor sat in every traditional home long before medicine came wrapped in foil blister packs. Let us move to number 4 on the ancient map, raw apple cider vinegar. This is the ultimate blood sugar regulator. When you read the text closely, vinegar is everywhere. In the Book of Ruth, Boaz tells her to dip her bread directly into the vinegar. In the Book of Numbers, strict vows restrict its use, proving it was an everyday staple on the ancient table. They consumed it as daily metabolic medicine. Real Unpasteurized apple cider vinegar requires a slow, deliberate double fermentation. The crushed apples first turn into a hard cider, and then slowly transform entirely into raw, powerful acetic acid. The true healing power lives inside what we call the mother. This living colony of bacteria floats like a cloudy web at the bottom of the glass, surviving only because modern processing hasn't pasteurized it away. The clinical evidence for this ancient map is staggering, taking 1 to 2 tablespoons before a heavy meal drops blood glucose spikes by 15 to 30%. The raw acetic acid acts as a biological roadblock, stopping the enzymes that turn starchy foods into dangerous sugar. For anyone fighting metabolic issues, this ancient wisdom restores true insulin sensitivity over time. But there is another hidden survival mechanism here. This raw acid perfectly stimulates digestion, offering immense relief for thousands of adults suffering silently from dangerously low stomach acid production. The ancient texts did not just record history. They mapped out the human body. When our stomach acid is low, we suffer from chronic bloating and fail to absorb the vital nutrients we need to survive. The ancients used sour tonics to restore this balance. Drinking 1 tablespoon of diluted apple cider vinegar in 8 ounces of water, 15 minutes before eating, revives that natural digestive fire. Never drink it straight, or you will burn your throat. Then we look east to the old medical scrolls of Asia, which mapped the heart long before modern science. They pointed to natto, a fermented soybean, as a powerful blood thinner. Today, we know these ancient healers were harnessing a living compound called nattokinase. Think of the body's arteries as the life-giving rivers described in ancient maps. They must remain clear to sustain us. This unique enzyme from natto acts like a natural current, dissolving the dangerous proteins that cause blood clots. Clinical trials confirm what early healers intuitively knew, showing it thins the blood and protects the heart just as effectively as modern pharmaceutical drugs, but with a deeply reassuring safety profile. Yet, the modern supplement industry completely misses the wisdom of the old ways. They process nattokinase pills under high heat, effectively killing the living enzyme. The ancients never stripped their food down to lifeless parts, and we should not either. To truly unlock this ancient survival map, you have to respect the living nature of the food. You must eat natto cold or at room temperature. Just as traditional cultures serve it over warm rice, careful to never let the hot bowl cook the beans. This protects the precious enzyme and delivers a massive dose of vitamin K2, over 300 micrograms in a single serving. This specific vitamin acts like a wise builder in your body, carrying rogue calcium out of your vulnerable arteries and packing it safely into your bones. Yes, the strong smell and stringy texture might challenge your modern palate. But eating 50 to 100 grams a week is a vital, living tradition that has protected human hearts for centuries. Today, you and I are going to unpack an ancient promise together. The book of Isaiah speaks of renewing our physical strength, of running and not growing weary. Beneath the poetry, there is a literal, physiological reality hidden in the soil. Fermented beetroot is the earthly answer to that enduring promise, through the natural magic of fermentation. The deep red nitrates in the root are transformed in our mouths into nitric oxide. This opens up our blood vessels, flooding our tired muscles with fresh oxygen. It works with such profound power that elite athletic committees actually ban it before competitions. That alone is a remarkable confirmation of the potent medicine hiding inside a simple garden vegetable. The ancient healers knew better than to boil the life out of their medicine. Raw, fermented beets hold onto their deep healing compounds, which high heat completely destroys. The true ancient preparation requires nothing more than raw beets, pure filtered water, a little plain salt without iodine, and the quiet passage of 3 to 5 days. No boiling, no harsh cooking. Just let the natural world do the work, drinking 3 to 4 ounces of that deep red brine every single day gives your body vital iron and folate, which is incredibly important as we grow older. When it turns your waste a bright pink color, do not panic. That is simply the visible, reassuring proof that the old remedies are doing their healing work inside you. Let us look back at the absolute foundation of this ancient nutritional map, the simple, raw, unpasteurized vegetables our ancestors preserved. Almost everyone remembers a jar of homemade pickles or sour cabbage sitting in the back of their grandmother's kitchen, smelling sharp, sour, and fiercely alive. Those humble jars hold the most enduring healing foods in human history, whether it was a fresh cucumber, a radish, or a garden turnip. Our ancestors preserved their harvest using nothing but natural salt, pure water, patience, and the brilliant, invisible life of beneficial microbes. This was never just a clever way to store food for the cold winter. It was a daily, living medicine meant to fortify the human gut. But our modern need for convenience has completely corrupted this ancient wisdom. If you buy a regular jar of pickles from a bright grocery store aisle, you are usually eating a dead food, soaked in harsh distilled white vinegar. There is absolutely no life left in it. No healing bacteria, just an empty, sour crunch. To follow the true health map, you must seek out genuine fermented pickles made only with salt and pure water. The natural salt pulls the good bacteria from the cucumber skins, creating a living remedy that thrives in the cold of your refrigerator. Eating these living, breathing foods repopulates your digestive system, delivering fresh vitamin C and healing the very core of your body exactly as nature intended. In ancient scriptures, salt is a literal preserver of life. The natural brine your vegetables sit in is a potent medicine you must never discard. Modern athletes use this liquid to stop muscle cramps, a survival reflex triggered by organic acids. You and I can recreate this biblical survival nutrition at home with a glass jar, fresh vegetables, sea salt, and water. The cost is pennies, but the healing for your digestive system is immense. Check your refrigerator right now. If the first ingredient is distilled vinegar, it is a dead modern shortcut. You want pure lactic acid, the living fermentation our ancestors relied upon in the wilderness. In this ancient health map, food quality is never just a preference. The absolute purity of the preparation is the medicine itself. The biblical health map demands foods that are truly alive. The active compounds found in fermented cabbage, sprouted ancient grains, raw teas, and crushed garlic are deeply fragile. Modern industrial processing has zero respect for this divine design. Pasteurization uses extreme heat to destroy every microscopic organism, just to force a product to sit on a shelf for years. Refinement strips away the exact active enzymes that made these ancient meals medicinal. The contrast between raw, unpasteurized fermented vegetables and the dead, canned version is staggering. One holds billions of living organisms performing God-given biological work within your body. The other is a lifeless imitation. This truth, that processing destroys the living medicine found in ancient texts, solves a mystery modern scientists have debated for decades. Why do traditional groups eating these ancient meals live longer and avoid chronic disease? Not because their diets are exotic, but because their food remains tied to the original design of creation. They never sacrificed true vitality for extended shelf life. The ancestors who preserved foods through brutal winters, who trusted the healing power of fermented herbs, held generations of wisdom. Their bodies recognized this biblical map of survival nutrition. Now, modern science is simply using clinical trials to validate the exact healing mechanisms that ancient cultures accepted as the natural, divine law of the human body. The blueprint for human health was written into these texts long before science could explain it. The ultimate question we must face is this: when did we decide our daily bread should last forever on a shelf? And what pieces of our health did we trade away for that modern convenience? Think deeply about that exchange. If mapping out these ancient nutritional truths resonates with you, please hit the like Button, subscribe, and share this message with someone who needs healing. Leave a comment telling me which biblical food surprised you most, or what ancient remedies you already use today. Tell me what scriptural medicine we should decode next. I read every single comment. New content arrives every week, and our exploration of this ancient health map is just getting started.